Games are kind of like life in a way. Most things that you could learn about life also could be game analogies, which is interesting. So I like to talk about life and then close with a note on how it maybe relates to gaming too. And the topic of today's conversation is the importance of kind of having a soft grasp of things and not being extremely obsessed with something. And then also the importance of stepping away and taking a vacation. And in the case of gaming, of course, that could mean that you play a game and then you just take a break from it because you get too much tunnel vision. You start thinking it's really important, and then you're focused more on the progress and less on the experience. There's also something to be said for the fact that when you aren't worried about what you accomplish, you actually may accomplish more. And I find that to be true in life a lot. For me, I've started to feel like I don't care as much about a lot of things in life. And I used to care a lot more. I cared about what people thought of me. I cared about being successful, cared about how much money I made, so many different things. And we all start off this way when we're young. The younger you are, probably the more you are really self conscious and worried about what other people think. And you start off your career and you're worried about having success with your job. You're worried about what the boss thinks, or you're afraid of losing your income. There's all those different things that play into emotions that are a lens through which we see our lives. Then, as time goes on, if you're lucky, you get to a point where you don't worry so much about those things. It starts to be more of a thing where I think, okay, I want to make some investments, and if they pay off, that's going to be really awesome. But then I don't expect them to pay off right now. I'm going to go do my job, but I'm not really going to be super worried about it. If for some reason something happens and I have to go find another job, then that's okay. I'll go ahead and do that. Cross that bridge when I get there. I'm going to do the best I can today, but I'm not really going to be worried if I'm doing something else tomorrow. The path of today is not the path of tomorrow, and that's okay. And that creates a lot of liberty. And I think there's truth in honesty, there's power in honesty. Honesty that comes from not really being worried about one thing being that big payoff, that big jackpot you hit. You don't worry too much about those things, and then you have the confidence to just let them be what they are. And you see things for what they are. You don't have to try to oversell yourself. You don't have to try to hide your weaknesses. You don't have to try to pretend that you're more serious than you really, you know, want to be. You start being comfortable, being reasonably casual about your approach. And, the funny thing is, that doesn't mean that you produce poor results. Quite often, when you stop trying to have everything really, really tightly in your grasp, then it just starts to be fun. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be climbing a leaderboard. It's just simple, it's easy, and you're relaxed. And it's amazing how powerful being relaxed about life is. And that could be, not worrying about impressing people. It could be that you aren't afraid of loss so much. Um, People respect calm. That's just the truth. And the more inexperienced people tend to be the ones who are going to be the most alarmed, the most inclined to make a big deal out of something, the most inclined to not take things in stride. You don't want to be that person. Not only does it not make you successful, it also keeps you from having inner peace. And I know that's really true in a lot of situations with gaming. There's so many people who try to be really good at a game. And that's the goal. The goal is to climb a leaderboard, it's to win, it's to beat another player. It's to be able to say that they're a subject matter expert on some particular title. And then it starts to feel like a job. It starts to be frustrating. It starts to be stressful. You start to convince yourself, try to force yourself to be convinced you're having fun when you're not really having fun. You start feeling like you have to put more time into, maybe a game than you actually want to. And then it's cutting into other things that you'd like to be doing. And do you really need to do any of that? The answer is no. No, absolutely not. Um, and you don't have to give something up entirely to let it go enough that it isn't going to be controlling your life. It's true in gaming, it's true in life, and sometimes the best way to really reset and to come back fresh and to really enjoy an experience is to just step away. And a vacation is a good example of this. You go to work every day, you have things going on, the stuff that you always do, and then maybe you start to feel like that's your whole world. Everything is important, everything is, a fire that must be put out or the world will end. And then you step away. Maybe something happens, and all those daily routines, those things that you worried about at work, the things that you stressed about, the things you thought, it's going to be the end of the world if this stuff doesn't happen. Well, you step away and the world doesn't end. You realize, oh, you know what? I can be invested without being consumed by something. I can be interested in what I'm doing, but I don't have to be extremely defined by it. And stepping away is sometimes the best way to break yourself out of that funk, that bubble of feeling like what you are currently involved in is the only thing that exists in the world. And that doesn't mean you don't come back. It doesn't mean that you don't continue to have a level of active interest in the things that you are doing in your life. It doesn't mean that you walk away and you never come back. It's just kind of a touch the grass kind of a thing, like you can take a week and don't play any video games. You could, I'm not saying to, but maybe it's just a couple days, whatever. Like you could take a break. You're not betraying something if you take a break. You could take a couple weeks, and not think about work maybe. And that doesn't mean you're never gonna put effort in again, but you don't have to be connected 24/7. It's okay if you go 30 minutes without checking your email or your social media feed or whatever it is that takes up your time. I know people who are so obsessed with their phones. It's just constant. They're always looking at their phone. It's always something. It's a text message. It's a social media thing. It's another phone call. They're just glued to the phone. Just never ever ever leave alone the phone long enough to just have a meal without looking at the phone, or have a conversation with the person in front of them without like just eyeing the phone like the whole time. That's obnoxious. Like you ever try to have a conversation with somebody? It's like they just can't have a conversation without the phone. Like, can you not have a phone call or a text message or touch your phone for 45 seconds? Is that too much? And for some people it is. And people can't see it when they're in it. That's the nice thing about stepping away. You step away from something and then you can see it more objectively. When you're in it, then you're surrounded by it, and then that's all you see. You don't see the broader picture, and that's what's nice about stepping away. You can see other things, and then you realize, you know what, the things that I have been obsessed with, the things that have been taking up all my mental energy, my time, those things aren't unimportant. It's not that they don't matter at all. It's just they don't have to be center stage all the time. It's okay to have other things in the room, other voices, other interests. And when you free yourself in that way, then you actually can give consent to the way you spend your time. You can say, this is something I want to do. And if I don't want to do it, then maybe I just won't do it for a while. And that's okay too. It's kind of like, it's like love. If I tell you you have to love me, and if you don't love me, then you're not doing the right thing. So you start thinking, okay, well, how can I fulfill this goal of, of loving more? And the more you try, the more it's hard because you can't really force it. And when you start to force it, the more effort you put in, the more it actually is impossible to achieve. Or happiness, for example. You try to force yourself to be happy, saying, how can I be more happy? And the more you look for happiness, the more you realize, well, shoot, I don't even really know how to find that. But if you say, you know what, I'm not really trying to be happy exactly. I'm just living. And that is what it is. There's going to be all different kinds of things I experience along the way. And I accept that, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything, happiness or unhappiness. It just is what it is. And when you accept that, there might still be pain, there might still be discomfort, but it doesn't feel like something you can't navigate anymore because you've accepted it. It doesn't have to be more than what it is. And if something doesn't work out, then you leave your self open to something, something else that can be maybe another path forward. And you embrace that idea. If a window closes, then maybe a door opens somewhere else. And that's liberating, because then things stop being problems, they stop being obstacles, and they just become natural events. You don't Most people don't freak out and get angry if the weather changes, because they understand that that's not a personal thing. It's just what happens. Maybe you don't like it, but it's not going to make or break your day. It's just, it is what it is. The weather changes. And so, with all the different things in life, don't be so attached. Don't be so iron gripped that you can't step away a little bit and then broaden your perspectives and realize that joy comes from a lot of different sources, and you can be happy, you can find happiness in a lot of different places. And letting go just a little bit so that you can be objective and so that you can have room for all the different things life has to offer in your life doesn't mean that you're betraying any kind of trust. And certainly doesn't mean that you can't continue to be invested and continue to come back to things that you really enjoy. But just be a little bit less obsessed, and understand that you can be less obsessed and still be interested. And sometimes when you try a little bit less, you get a little bit more. I will close with this story because I think it's relevant. There was a time I had this pickup truck, and it was not a good pickup truck. I think it was like a 1980 F-250. I got it out of somebody's yard, and it had moss growing on it, and the wheel wells were rusted out. And I remember it was my first vehicle, and the thing about it, it had a lot of things, slightly wrong with it. But one thing that I learned about it was that if you started to accelerate and you put the pedal all the way down to the floor, it kind of, I guess, slightly flooded the engine or something. I'm not quite sure why, but it just didn't really accelerate very fast. But if you kind of just gently applied pressure to the gas in just the right way, and it was a balanced way, then it would accelerate faster. And that was kind of a weird quirk about that vehicle, that if you tried to just put the pedal to the floor, you wouldn't accelerate as fast as if you kind of put the pedal down about 50% and you just kind of eased into it a little bit. And why the vehicle was that way, I don't know. But I have thought about how life is kind of like that. A lot of times, if you just ease into something and you're natural about it and you're not really chasing it and you're not really trying and you just enjoy the experience along the way, you wind up being successful in whatever you choose to do. But if you try to really go out of your way to chase it and you're determined to be successful and you're extremely motivated to reach a certain achievement, then oddly, the success is actually harder to come by. Happiness is harder to come by. Peace is harder to come by. So just enjoy the game you play and know you don't have to play if you don't feel like it. And you're never under any obligation to play the way other people want to. You can just enjoy the experience as you go and play the game however you see fit. So find happiness in whatever you're doing. And if you struggle to find happiness, you struggle to find answers to things that perplex you, try just not looking so hard for the answer, maybe. Accept that it's okay for some questions to just not be answered, because why would they all need to be answered? If you think about it. Just like games that exist that I haven't played. There's a lot of games I haven't played. But does that mean I need to play them? No. Why would I need to play them? If what I'm doing is enough, then why would I need to look for something more? And that's just a truth that's universal. We are enough, and what we are doing is enough. And I think we have a tendency to feel like if a little bit of something is good, then more of that something would be better. And then we kind of overdose. We get addicted to whatever we think the solution is. And the solution is actually to diversify the portfolio of life. You don't want to be totally defined by a relationship with somebody else. You don't want to be totally defined by a job. You don't want to be totally defined by a video game. You don't want to be totally defined by being obsessed with fitness or, a certain, diet or a certain religion or a certain political view. You want to have room for a lot of different things, but that doesn't mean throwing those things out. It just means you accept that they all have a place in your life, but no one thing is the only thing that matters in your life. So, good luck with everything. Till next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye.